What's been the craziest thing that you've experienced here? Like, it could be bad, good, indifferent, but like, what's something that was like, this is different?
I mean, the trusses are. This was the first one that I did from the ground up.
Yep.
But being in framing, um, with a background in framing, when I went into the Brown's house, I saw how it was framed. So I came to this house, look at the plans, and I know how it's done. I just had to explain it to my framer. But he said, the same thing. Once he does one, that's all we need to do, and now we'll be professional at it. So,
Right.
but definitely the height of the ceilings
Yeah.
inside, and I mean that's different.
Yep. Well, I think one thing that you kind of champion too is, our ability to like lean into the experience. So like anybody can come out here and build it, even if it's different. Like you said, like I've never built a barndominium before, but it's, once I do a couple, like I'm a pro now. But the ability to navigate customer relationships and the communication, like you're really good at communication. So what's some of the things that you do to make sure that your clients feel involved, heard, understood, communicated to? Like, what are some things that you do to kind of raise the bar there?
So for me, the communication of just information all around, whether it's good news, bad news, it just needs to be expressed to them so that they're aware. Like yesterday, I had to call Sean Holscher and said, "Look, I'm going to be the first one to call you because I don't want you to walk in the house at night and see this and then, call me with it." So I'll just tell you, the flooring's not in and giving me excuses. But so it's just really just be honest. I know some people are afraid to tell them bad news or they want to come up with an excuse to tell them. Just be honest. And then people don't snap at you as much if you tell them, "Oh, the flooring guy said he'll be here tomorrow," and nobody shows up tomorrow, and then you don't tell them that they didn't show up. And then, I mean, it's a little different when the homeowner's close, they can see things, but
Well, I think
it's just
all of it's
honesty.
just news,
Yeah,
right? It's perceived as good or bad based off of what your expectations were.
right.
And for you, the expectation was, hey, we're going to be here. But it's not. It's just at that moment, it's just news. And when you proactively communicate with the client, it's just news to them. And so, depending on how they respond to it, is whether or not it's good or bad news, right?
Hmm.
And so, I think the ability to just deliver news
Yeah.
and be involved and include them in the process allows it to just be news to them. Hey, I got news that the floors are delayed 2 or 3 days. It's not going to really change much, but it again, if there was no communication and then they discovered it and then they run it up, it's instantly perceived as bad news.
Hmm.
But if you're made aware, it's kind of like the weather.
Yep.
Like, we just had Hurricane Milton hit Florida and most of the state evacuated. And the storm wasn't quite as bad. It's still massively catastrophic, but wasn't as bad as it was intended. And the news gave people the information, and then they made a decision to either stay or go. And then, after the event happened, some people were massively prepared, right? Some people, like everyone, at least received the news. To some, it was good news. Some, it was bad news. Like, it just depends on the perspective there. But it's just news. And I think that there's oftentimes one of the biggest disconnects, and especially on Facebook, social media, my God,
Hmm.
everything is scrutinized. Everything. And honestly, sometimes it's hey, this was a bad job. Sometimes it was just a crazy expectation from a client's perspective. But every time it's I don't understand what's happening. And the fact that the initial reaction is I need to take a picture of it and post it on Facebook makes me think, how bad is the communication between you and the project manager, you and the builder at this point, that it wasn't even discussed?
Right.
And so I think one of the things that we do is in the beginning, we set these expectations that, like, hey, not everything's going to go perfect, right? There's going to be some things that happen, but we're in this together, and building that trust that, hey, I'm communicating good news, I'm communicating bad news, I'm just delivering the news. And when you involve people in that, then it becomes like like a tribe. Like this is a tribal decision at this point. Like we're both frustrated, but we understand that we're both frustrated, and so we could be frustrated at the problem, not each other.
Right.
And I think that's something that like we didn't always do right. Right. Like you learn because in the same thing, like you're trying to grow a brand in the company, like you don't want to take a highlighter and just highlight all the bad things that happen, right?
Right.
You want to talk a lot about the good because never are we discussing how great things are. Because if there's 99 great things and one bad thing, we're talking about the one bad thing. But I think keeping people informed and in the loop and all those kind of things and having the ability to be transparent and honest with people. I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity that are in a project management scenario because somewhere up the chain, they're like, don't tell them, you know, like, let's just do this and this to distract from that. And like,
Mhm.
and it may work in the interim, but when you get to a certain scale, you can't do that. And it's not the best practice. It's better to just deliver the news and then navigate it together. And because of doing that, like you build trust, you build respect, you build all these things that are really great and needed to build this. Because look, if you're a homeowner and you're wanting to build a home or a barndo or whatever it is, if you go into it from day one thinking it's me versus them, you're gonna have a hell of an experience. If you go into it thinking it's us versus the world, then it changes the dynamic a little bit. And I think you do a really good job of that. I mean, like, again, couple projects down here in Conway, but the overall response has been like Scott's on it. Scott's on it. Like he's dealing with it, and all the clients are just rave reviews, and they love it from site visits because you've done several of those to construction to planning, RSB meetings, all these different things, all these different components. The overarching thing is like how good the communication is, and like that you can't just expect that to happen. It has to be set as a deliberate expectation that we're going to over communicate throughout the process. And again, we weren't always the best at it, but our goal is to be the best at it. So that helps a lot. In terms of like living out core values and all that kind of stuff, and like we recruit around that, and we hire based off that, we fire based off that. Like it is who we are, and so we're really cautious and guarded how we allow other people to operate with us, even subcontractors. If there's not some alignment inside of these core values, like it's just not going to work, and we know that, and so we just say no on the front end. But inside of that, being in it, right, being here, experiencing it, living this, it's not always easy. But like, what out of the core values, like, what's the one that really resonates with you?
So I mean, my main thing for dealing with a lot of these subs and things is just respect, and just you don't treat them like they're your sub. You kind of
Right.
work with them. And I know there's a lot of um, Spanish speaking subcontractors, but if you, I know decent amount of Spanish to where I can understand them and I can talk to them. When you speak to them in that way, whether you got the grammar correct or not, they you can watch their facial expressions. They light up, they feel more comfortable.
Right.
And it's just a mutual respect there. And then when you need something done, you might have missed something or you forgot something, you call them up. There's no problems with them coming and showing up, doing things for you. And it's really that's really one of the main things is respect for anyone working for you instead of treating them different than
Yeah. Well, I think that would absolutely lean over into the giving aspect, right? And so, how do you build rapport with someone? You got to be on a give take basis. I got to always give more than I'm taking. And if you get that wrong, and everything's a take, right? And we do it internally, and some of that stuff, like Mike says this all the time. He's like that, that's caught not taught, and that's how our culture helps expand growth to where we see the same things happening in new markets where it's not just a Greenville thing, it's a Barndo thing, and it's caught not taught. So like some of it, it's just the way we interact. Like we give and give and give to you, and then when we need to take or ask, you gladly do it. And then you bring the same thing here when you're managing subs and all the different aspects that go into build is like, I'm going to give, I'm going to give, I'm going to give. And then when I do come to a take, it doesn't seem like it's a negative equity play in the relationship, right? And I think you can vastly miss that. You can miss that the ability to ask of something and have something done by if the whole thing is you're here to serve me, you miss the boat. You miss the boat. I mean, like you serve the people here. Like I mean, just being here today and watching the things that transpire, like you're constantly serving them. You know what I mean? Like we pulled up here. It's been distracting, right? But this live construction. This is what makes money for the company. This is how it goes. This is what needs to be happening for us to deliver what we're doing. And like there's 15 trades that have been on this job today, and you're moving around and talking to them, and like they're installing things behind us, around us, in front of us. If we'd have just showed up and said we're shutting the job down for the next 4 hours to film podcasts, what does that mean?
Right.
These guys get paid by performing, right? Our main mission objective is to get homes done. Like it's a give. Like we are here in your environment, and like we're not going to ask you to stop doing what you're doing. And it's crazy. Like it's crazy. Like there's a piece of me that's like, I wish that this was like set up for a podcast, but this is not the important thing. This is an addition to what our main objective is. And so it's fun. It's fun to watch you do it because like you're so unbothered by it, because it's like, like, hey, yeah, they're doing this, they're doing that. And like, it's just a giver's mentality. And I think that's that. If anyone ever came to me and said, TJ, what do you think the number one secret to growing a business was? What do you think the number one secret of getting buy-in is? Give more than you take, exponentially more.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.